Hey everybody, welcome back to another video by Rendan, the Elden Man. Just doing some Elden Ring invasions, all Elden Ring invasions for this video alone. Actually, this will be the first in a couple of videos that is just purely Elden Ring footage. I wanted to showcase something particularly close to my heart in this game, the best incantation that there is in the game in my opinion, Wrath of Gold. But before I get to that, as always, a little bit of lore background on this character. He is actually the meta level character that has been showcased a couple of times, Dark Saint, taking him up to level 163, finally listening to some of the feedback and I guess just, general consensus among other content creators about level 163 range, that it's got a good bit of activity. You're invading things just besides boss doors, and that all sounded pretty appealing to me. So I decided to take one or two characters up there. I think I'm also taking up the Ruin Mannequin up to that level, just so I have a couple of invaders on that range. That way I'll have some invaders in the 20s, some in the 60s, some at meta, and then also some at 163, so I can have invasions pretty much across about any bracket that I want to, maybe minus like 80, 90, but we'll solve that in the future. This character I have renamed to the Forlorn. And if anyone is familiar at all with Dark Souls 2, you will know lore-wise what I'm talking about. The Forlorn were creations by Aldia in Dark Souls 2. I don't know if they were originally in the original Dark Souls 2 version, but they were definitely in the Scholar of the First Sin version, which was the first one I ever played. Kudos to those who played it without Scholar of the First Sin, because Scholar of the First Sin added a whole lot of really awesome things to Dark Souls 2, so much so that actually I think Aldia is probably my favorite character in all of the Dark Souls series. Just such an interesting character with everything he did. Man, just really, really cool, dark character. But yeah, anyway, I digress. So Aldia in Dark Souls 2, if you're familiar with him at all, plays a huge part in the story. Not only was he the king's brother, King Vendrick, in Drain Lake, he was also a bit of a practitioner, I don't know necessarily of sorcery himself. I guess you couldn't really call him a practitioner of anything. He was somewhat of a scientist or just a researcher, whatever. He sought, like King Vendrick, to find a cure to the curse of mankind, the fire linking curse, the curse of Halloween, whatever you want to call it, that was plaguing the kingdom of Dark Souls 2 in Drain Lake. And that have been plaguing the kingdom, every human kingdom since Dark Souls 1 in perpetuity. In Dark Souls 2 they can't even remember, it's been so long. But he and Vendrick, however, diverged upon how they wanted to solve this curse. Vendrick just wanted the kingdom to be cured of the curse and just things go back to normal. Aldia initially was the same way, had the same goal, but had slightly less reservations about how to do it. Eventually went beyond just curing the curse and into more how to transcend the limits of death, the curse itself, the gods, all of it. He wanted to go way farther than Vendrick did, and he did. A couple of methods that he utilized are one that I kind of hinted at in the last video I did about dragon worship, which pertains to Aldia, which pertains to Seath, which pertains to pretty much, Dark Souls 3 Nameless King, overcoming, your human bodies and becoming dragon, becoming turning into a dragon. That is a way that Aldia also sought to overcome the curse of Halloween. A slight tangent before I get back to that lore point in a minute. I was testing out Noble Presence on this build, even though this whole video is dedicated to Wrath of Gold. Watch that Noble Presence go right there. It's really cool. It's one of the few I got. But I found a great use for Noble's Presence, and it is on elevators. Look how cool that is. Anybody camping at the top of elevators now, this is a great way to counter them. You can use Noble Presence as you're coming up, and it will knock people back who are trying to wait to spam something like Rot Breath at you at the top of the elevator. It is really, really great. Saint did a video actually about Noble's Presence not too long ago. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of disagreed with him on the usefulness of it. He was using it for backstabs, and then as a wake up afterwards. I don't see why they can't just roll away from you on the first quote-unquote safety roll, and then they're just too far from you to use Noble Presence. Maybe he's aware of some mechanic that I'm not, but it doesn't seem as useful in that way as he indicated. So while I really love Saint, great content creator. I don't know about quite the usefulness of that, but again, I'd be happy to be wrong. Now, Noble Presence does not work when there's a surface descending and it, like above you. See right there, Noble Presence gets blocked by the elevator coming down. So keep in mind, it works very well when there's nothing blocking your way physically or physics-wise in the game. But if something is coming down, like an elevator coming down at you, the physics, or I guess the hard surface of that elevator will block Noble Presence. It doesn't go through it. So keep that in mind. But on elevators, I'm going to use that all the time. I love that. It's so cool. People think they're going to style on you and kill you immediately as they're coming up the elevators. Hell no. Noble Presence. Just got them. All right, where were we? Aldia. We were talking about Aldia and dragons. And dragons being one way that Aldia was experimenting with to overcome the curse of hollowing, which is, overcoming the curse of hollowing and dragon worship and becoming dragons is a thing in all Dark Souls. You can see it in Dark Souls 2, particularly with Aldia. When you kill the ancient dragon, it drops a giant soul. Obviously, it's not supposed to. True dragons aren't supposed to have giant souls. Look at that damage! Oh my god, it nearly killed me. It's ridiculous. And so obviously, it's hinted at that Aldia had something to do with the creation of that dragon. There's more lore flavor and texts about that in Dark Souls 2. But in another way, Aldia tried to overcome the curse of hollowing. He was experimenting with, transcending, again, just life itself, or death itself, I should say. He created something called the Forlorn. Now, when you go to the manor, Aldia's manor, in Dark Souls 2, you come across a number of crazy things that he's made, chimeras, weird creatures put together, amalgamations of things all together. But the Forlorn will invade you in a couple of spots in the game. And the Forlorn in lore text, in the item descriptions, and also from Loki Souls, or just Loki lore, who created, I think he created the Abyssal Archive, was talking about the Forlorn. And in the, just the lore descriptions on the wiki as well, it talks about the Forlorn being another way that Aldia was trying to overcome death and the curse of hollowing. How he did this was he literally took people, I guess through human sacrifice, binded them together and untethered the creation he made from reality. They no longer exist physically in any plane, minus their armor in any world. So they literally go from world to world, invading with no physical bodies, no physical presence. They are transient, and they have overcome the curse. They are not cursed. There is no hollowing to speak of with them, but they also have no will of their own. They are just hollow suits of armor moving from world to world invading. Which, now that I think about it, sounds a whole lot like every invader in all of the Souls games. We have no lives. We are basically hollow beings invading constantly with basically no stop, and a lot of us have no lives, or at least I have no life outside of this game. I do, but it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Anyway, I've spent a little too long on the lore flavor for this character. Again, he's just a Forlorn, invading from world to world as a transient being, as he levels up from 125 at meta, or 133 at meta, to 163. And now that I've literally harped on lore for 15 minutes, or I guess maybe it's like 10 minutes or so, I don't really know, it's been a while. It's been a good bit of lore time. Let's talk about utility and something actually useful from these videos for you to glean. Wrath of Gold. Now, Wrath of Gold to me is one of the best incantations in this game, and I know that is a bold claim. It is a bold claim. I don't see a lot of Wrath of Gold use in Elden Ring, honestly. Maybe I'm just missing it. But again, I rarely ever see it. I've come across a handful of people that use it at all, and very few people at all, if any, use it the way that I do. So the way that I use it is literally just a get the fuck off me spell, which, again, you might say, Rendan, that's what it is. And it is, but when I mean get the fuck off me, I literally mean get the fuck off me. This build and the builds that I use to utilize this are dex builds. Basically, the minimum I aim for when I'm using Wrath of Gold in dexterity is 40 dexterity, and then 40 dexterity plus Radigan's icon equals success. It equals incredibly fast casting for Wrath of Gold. Not as much damage as you could do, but if you're not going to hit somebody with Wrath of Gold anyway, why even cast it? So it is a max cast, or close to max cast Wrath of Gold, and it surprises the hell out of people, and it is hilarious to watch them go flying with it. I mean, absolutely fucking hilarious to watch every time I do it. It's a great mix-up too, keeps people on their toes, gets them off your back. Yeah, it's awesome. Why don't people use this more? And killing people with it is the most stylishly cool thing I have seen in any of these games. This is so much fun. Look at that. Look how cool that is to do. Now, I have added 2 Zweihanders to this build. You might ask, why 2 Zweihanders on the Dex build? Well, I really like Ultra Great Swords, or I guess Colossal Swords as they're called in Elden Ring. And one I threw Horrorlu's Earthshaker on because the initial kind of running R1, or just R1s in general, if they hit on an Ultra Great Sword, they do a lot of damage. But the weakness is you can roll through them, even though the swings were sped up, I think in patch 1.06, 1.07, whatever, they can still be, rolled through pretty easily. They can be whiff punished. But with Horrorlu's Earthshaker and the hyper armor you get off of that, if they roll into any of my swings, they're going to get hit by Horrorlu's Earthshaker, which, they could knock me out of if they have enough hyper armor to do it. But most likely they do not. And they have to roll out of that or get hit by it. So, there's that initial part of it. In addition to that, I also have Wrath of Gold ready to go. And if I'm mixing those 2 things up between Horrorlu's Earthshaker and Wrath of Gold, they have no fucking idea what's coming next. Either I'm going to hit them with a big sword, I'm going to use Horrorlu's Earthshaker to do a ton of damage to them that way, and even if they hit me, unless it's with a very big weapon, you're not getting me out of Horrorlu's Earthshaker. And then beyond that, I'm also casting Wrath of Gold. So what am I going to cast next? Am I going to use Wrath of Gold? Am I going to use Horrorlu's Earthshaker? Am I going to hit him with a sword? Well, just hit him with the sword is probably what I'm going to do, or try to do no matter what. But whichever one I'm using works. The other Zweihander just has Giant's Hunt on it, because Giant's Hunt is a ton of fun to use. I'll use either that, or I will use the Claymore with Piercing Fang on it for people that are using, Colossal Shield and things like that. Giant Hunt is a little bit more fun to hit people with and, break them out of that shield, but it's not quite as reliable as Piercing Fang, because obviously Piercing Fang just breaks through shields. It's what it's meant to do. So yeah, I have both of those things, and those are what I use them for. They're pretty good. So then again, to recap, Colossal Sword R1s, or just hits in general, to lure them in, if they don't get hit by it, into my trap card, which is either my trap card.
You triggered my trap card.
Which is either Horrorlu's Earthshaker or Wrath of Gold, and mixing those 2 things back and forth sufficiently enough. And with enough randomness, they don't know which one is coming. And Wrath of Gold casts very fast. Horrorlu's, casts more slowly, but obviously has that initial kind of stun at the very start of it, and then they have to roll out of it or stick in and engage. And if they roll through and decide not to roll out, or they jump over the Horrorlu's attack or the Horrorlu's Earthshaker, if they don't hit me, then I can immediately rapidly cast Wrath of Gold and knock them out of it. It's not a foolproof strategy in Elden Ring, but nothing is. It's a pretty strong one though, and I'm very happy with it so far. It's done very, very well. Also, I have realized I cannot aim it all with the jar cannon. It is something I am working on. Please feel free to judge me. Please feel free to unsubscribe from my content because I'm terrible with it. Please feel free to unsubscribe from my content because I'm terrible in general. But I will improve, and then you can resubscribe after that. Wrath of Gold should not be overlooked as a turn and burn technique or tool in Elden Ring. I know that in Elden Ring itself, actually, turn and burns are not quite as strong as they were in Dark Souls 3, namely because passive poise exists. And if passive poise exists, not all weapons can actually even stun people who are chasing you, which kind of denies the point if you're running away from 3 people. It's one thing that Dark Souls 3 did kind of well that I wish was still a thing. It's hard to break yourself of the habit of turning and burning when you've been playing Dark Souls 3 for, 3-4 plus years, and it really kind of feels pretty bad when you turn around with something like a curved sword, a straight sword, whatever, and hit somebody who's wearing armor, and it basically feels like a wet noodle, like those little noodles that you have in pools, just smacking them in the face, and then 3 of them with double double heavy thrusting swords, and then ultra great weapons smack you in the face, get you in kind of a chain stun lock, and then just kill you automatically. So. But Wrath of Gold can solve that, because Wrath of Gold can knock anybody back. Even if they're blocking, oftentimes it will break their shield, and then you can, I guess, is it riposte them? I can't, for the life of me, think of it right now. Anyway, you can, excuse me, you can critical attack them. So you will see slowly these phantoms that are helping out this host die one by one. The first one there, I think, died unintentionally. I think he just misjudged his jump and fell off there. But as you can see, not all phantoms are made in the same cloth as other phantoms, and this host and phantom have gone far away from the boss. And I think that this phantom was just here for a nice boss fight, didn't want to, get drawn into all this PvP nonsense that he's heard so much about on YouTube, that all these toxic people, all these reds, do, and just take up precious time co-oping. So he or she will decide to just opt out and leave this poor host behind, who, like a champ, even though maybe they don't realize that their phantoms are gone, have decided to stick through with this fight to the bitter end and fight me. And I'll always appreciate Fat Boy Don Don for hanging in there and fighting me. Thank you, Fat Boy Don Don. You did pretty well, and I like your build. Minus the bull coats. Don't wear bull coats. If I could draw your attention back to this initial clip I showed at the beginning of the video, this upcoming combination was made possible by 3 awesome people who gave me the recommendation that I can actually do this, that being the Clean Rot Spear weapon art into the stun true combo of Wrath of Gold at the end of that. So shout out to Epistanuda, to Errol, and to Fel for showing me that. This smile and this win and this upcoming emoted cheer are dedicated to the 3 of you all, so thank you again. You will also be surprised how well things like Wrath of Gold can do in try-hard situations. Not only is it a good counter for things like parries, if someone's using Quick Step or Bloodhound Step, if you time it the right way, you can catch them halfway through or right at the end of that animation and knock them back with Wrath of Gold. You can do a swing, R1, R2, whatever, and then as soon as they immediately cast, or not cast, or is it casting when you use an Ash of War? I don't know. I'm going to call it casting. When they cast either of those 2 things, you immediately hit Wrath of Gold. If you have the casting speed for it, you can catch them in it, knock them back, then they're on the ground, they're on the back foot, you can chase them down. It works really, really well in a lot of situations. You see there I caught him there twice with that. Now, is someone going to fall for that every single time? No, but it's coming out sufficiently quick enough that it's going to make them doubt. And I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just using up all my FP and just disregard this. I have no idea what I'm doing. But you can use it, if you use it the right way, it's going to confuse people and make them sufficiently nervous that you can cast that at any time around them to make them at least wary of it. And if someone is wary of something that you're doing, you're already playing mind games with them, and those mind games can work pretty well in your favor. And what doesn't this person have? Offhand S-Stock parry tool, huge amount of poise, Thunderbolt Ash of War on the other rapier, or I guess it's Clean Rot, I think. It might be 2 S-Stocks, which they are. Power stancing, the soft swap into Misericord one-shot, and the Crimson Bubble Tier. This person is teched out. They have all the tools. They've got what it takes. They are in it to win this duel. And so I'm just using, Crag Blade, Wrath of Gold, but I'm holding my own so far. I do have to switch. I get a little try-hard in this, but sometimes you just have to. But Wrath of Gold is something that I do not stop using the entire time. Even though I switch my weapons, even though I switch my tactics, Wrath of Gold doesn't go away. And that should tell you something about how I feel about how effective it is in any situation. All right, that's the video. Hope everybody enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one coming up soon. So, yeah, see you around.
Men are props in a state of life, and no matter how tender, how explicit, a lie will remain a lie.